There is a version of your career where doing good work is enough, where results speak, where performance is tracked, where the right people notice what you produce and use it to make decisions about where you go next. That version exists. It is just not the version most people are in. In the version most people are in, there's a gap between what you produce and what gets registered. And the size of that gap is not random. It is determined by a specific mechanism that organizations run, mostly without knowing they are running it. And if you have ever done excellent work and watched it disappear, not noticed, not credited, not factored into any decision that mattered, this is what happened to it. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why the organization cannot see work it cannot point to, and why the gap between what you produce and what gets registered has nothing to do with the quality of what you made. Here's how decisions about people actually get made inside organizations. When a promotion opens, when a name needs to go forward, when someone needs to be selected for a high-visibility project, the decision is not made by reviewing output logs or performance histories. It is made in a conversation, and conversations run on what people can remember and articulate quickly about someone. The person making the decision asks themselves, or is asked by someone else, who comes to mind for this? And the names that surface are the names that have been maintained in the memory of the decision-maker through repeated, low-friction contact. Not necessarily the best performers, the most present ones. This is how the system actually works, not fairly, not based on merit alone, but on mental availability. The name that arrives fastest wins the consideration, and mental availability is built through presence, through being seen, heard, referenced, associated with things that went well. Now here's the mechanism that creates the quiet performer penalty specifically. Work that requires no attention to function is work that generates no visibility. If you are the person who handles things before they become problems, who resolves issues quietly, who prevents crises, who delivers without drama, your output leaves almost no trace in the minds of the people above you, because the thing that generates trace is the moment something demands attention, and your work, by design, never demands attention. It just works. This is not a failure. It is actually the highest form of professional competence, to make your function invisible by making it seamless. But seamless and invisible are the same thing when it comes to how organizations form impressions of people. The problem created is fixed and prevented. The person who created and fixed it is not distinguished from the background. The background is just running. Meanwhile, the person who handles things loudly, who communicates every step, who sends the update before they are asked, who makes their process visible even when the process is less efficient, that person is leaving trace constantly. Every communication is a data point. Every visibility is a deposit into the mental account the organization holds about them. They are not performing better, they are performing more visibly. And visibility is what the system is actually measuring, because visibility is what the system can see. Here's the part that compounds the penalty into something more serious than being overlooked for a promotion. Over time, the quiet performer does not just become invisible to opportunity, they become invisible to risk assessment as well. When an organization evaluates who is dispensable during restructuring, during budget cuts, during any moment when headcount needs to reduce, the people who survive are not always the most valuable. They are the people whose removal would be most immediately felt. The people whose absence would create noise, demand explanation, cause disruption. The quiet performer, who has been doing their job without generating trace, is disproportionately at risk in this calculation. Their presence has been seamless. Their absence would also be seamless, at least in the short term. And short term is all that matters in the moment the list is being made. The person who made themselves visible, who has been in the emails, in the meetings, in the conversations that matter, is more embedded in the organization's operational memory. Their absence would be felt immediately because their presence has been felt consistently.
This is the full shape of the quiet performer penalty. Not just that you are overlooked for advancement, but that the same quality, seamless, quiet, effective execution, is the quality that makes you most likely to be the first name on the list when something has to give. You built your value on output. The organization measures value by presence. Those two things are not the same, and the gap between them is the penalty. You were not invisible because you were not good enough. You were invisible because you were too good at making your work disappear. Every problem you solved quietly, every crisis you prevented, everything that never broke because you maintained it, none of that left a trace the organization could point to. The work existed, the record of it did not. And organizations can only promote what they can point to. So what changes this? The answer is not to do worse work. It is not to manufacture drama or create visible problems you then solve. It is something more specific and considerably less exhausting than either of those. The work needs a translation layer, a brief, consistent, low-effort communication that converts what you do into something the organization can register. Not a performance, not self-promotion, a translation. The difference is the intent. Self-promotion is about making yourself look good. Translation is about making your work legible. It's about bridging the gap between what you produce and what the organization can see, because the organization cannot promote what it cannot see, and it cannot see seamless execution. It can only see what gets communicated. The person who sends a brief weekly summary, 3 sentences, what was handled this week, what is being watched next week, is not performing. They are creating a record, a paper trail of competence that exists in someone else's inbox and therefore in someone else's memory. The record does the visibility work, so the actual work doesn't have to stop being seamless to be noticed. One well-placed sentence in the right conversation, "We had a potential issue with X last week, caught it early, it's resolved," is worth months of invisible excellence. Not because the invisible excellence wasn't real, but because the sentence is what the organization can store, reference, and recall when a decision is being made. The quiet performer penalty is not just a penalty for doing good work. It's a penalty for assuming that good work is self-documenting. It is not. Nothing is. Every piece of work that matters needs someone to point to it. That someone is you. Not loudly, not constantly, just consistently enough to exist in the room where decisions are made. That's corporate GPS, the map they never handed you.